To solve this by factoring, we need a 0 on one side of our equal sign, so we're going to start off by subtracting 8x and subtracting 12 from both sides. Now we don't have any like terms to be able to combine anything, so we're just going to have to write this as 2x cubed plus 3x squared minus 8x minus 12 equals 0. Since we have 4 terms over here, in order to factor that, we're going to try factoring by grouping. So I'm going to go ahead and group these first 2 terms together, and we'll factor out what they have in common. And then we'll group these last 2 terms together and factor out what they have in common. So in order to group those, because I'm introducing parentheses, I need to be careful that what I end up with is equivalent to what we started with. So with this negative in front of the parentheses, in order to, if I wanted to get rid of the parentheses later, I would need to distribute this negative. So that would give me that minus 8x. But in order to get a minus 12, I would have to do a plus 12 inside the parentheses. Again, that way, in order to remove the parentheses, I'd have to distribute this negative, and I'd get minus 8x minus 12, which is what we started with. So this is equivalent to what we started with. So now let's go ahead and look at our first group here and see what they have in common. Both of these terms have an x squared in common, so we'll go ahead and factor out an x squared. That'll leave us with 2x plus 3. In our second grouping, 4 goes into both terms, so we'll factor out a 4. And that will leave us with 2x plus 3. So factor by grouping is only useful and productive if we end up with the same exact expression in each of these sets of parentheses, which we have here. So now we look at these 2 terms here, and we see that these 2 terms have that 2x plus 3 in common. So we factor out that entire expression, 2x plus 3. Now that leaves us with an x squared in the first term minus 4 there in the second term. And now we can actually continue to factor here. This x squared minus 4, that's a difference of squares. We can factor that as x plus 2 times x minus 2. So that's using a formula that I'll write down up here real quick. That's a difference of squares where you have something squared minus something else squared. So a squared minus b squared. And the way to factor that is a plus b times a minus b. That's a formula that gets used a lot in factoring. So now that we have it completely factored, we can set each of the 3 factors separately equal to 0 and solve them. So I have 2x plus 3 equals 0, or x plus 2 equals 0, or x minus 2 equals 0. Solving each of these for x will give us our solutions to the original equation. So in the first one here, we need to subtract 3 from both sides and then divide by 2. So get x equals negative 3 over 2. In the second one, just subtract 2 from both sides, get x equals negative 2. And in the third one, we need to add 2 to both sides, so we get x equals 2. So our 3 solutions here, we have x equals negative 3 over 2, or x equals negative 2, or x equals 2.